Well, again, welcome everyone. We expect a full crowd today, and that is in part because we have amazing educators from 3 different time zones joining us today from across the country, and they represent K-12. So you will hear from elementary, middle school, and high school practitioners. And so we expect a packed 40 minutes. We are going to aim to get you out right on time or a minute early if we can spare it. And so it's going to be a hopping chat box, but feel free to grab the mic. Feel free to ask questions throughout. And I will serve as your moderator. My name is Jessica Cuthbertson, and I am here representing the Center for Teaching Quality. And we are just so glad that you can make it. We know that time is precious, and time in the era of COVID teaching is even more precious. So we really appreciate you making the time to be with us live. This will be available as a recording, but there's really no substitute for live engagement. And this is your opportunity to get to interact with amazing educators from across the country and ask them questions directly about their video clips and the strategies they're using in their classrooms. So before we officially get started, I wanted to give a shout out to Ann Bird, our fearless leader here at CTQ. Ann, would you mind hopping on the mic and saying hello?
Thank you, Jessica. Greetings, everyone. I am looking forward to being part of this session with you all. This work of having you guys who are the experts, the folks who deal with all of the many challenges you're facing and working with students on a daily basis, and being able to share not only what you have learned, but what you are doing so very well is makes for really powerful webinars. And we just appreciate those of you who are presenting and those of you here to more fully enrich the conversations and the learning. So welcome to everyone, and I'm looking forward to learning along with you.
And just a couple housekeeping things. If you could keep your mic muted when you're not speaking, but again, feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions throughout. Um, Again, I will serve as timekeeper. So the structure for this afternoon's conversation will be that each video clip or each practitioner or practitioner team will get about 6 to 8 minutes. And the way we have that structured is they will introduce their video clip. We will share a 30-second to 1-minute snippet of that clip. However, we know that you found yourself to this registration room, which means that you got the registration link, so you have access to the full clips outside of this session, or we asked you to watch them ahead of time. If you didn't get to do that, no worries. We will share a snippet of that clip. They will be prepared to speak about their practice, and you can always catch the full version of their clip after this live webinar. Then after that short video snippet, we will engage in some Q&A with the practitioners. And really what we're hoping is that by the end of this session, you will leave with a toolbox of new ideas, strategies, and emerging best practices for distance learning, our new normal or our current normal across the country. If you like what you hear today, this is one of several offerings that we have actually on our YouTube channel. So we encourage you to go back to some of our archived micro webinars and check out additional supports. And if this is something that your district, team, or school is interested in engaging in personalized professional learning, we also have a variety of offerings spanning various topics such as DEI, virtual engagement, and social emotional learning for both students and adults. So this is really one offering in a larger series or stack of micro webinars. And we hope to see you back next month for our February offering as well, which we will tease at the end of this session. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first practitioner team. Please welcome Bridget Belcher and Deidra Williams, 4th grade teachers from South Carolina. They collaborate and share students, and they are going to talk to you a little bit about what's working and their best practices for their 4th graders in this unprecedented and interesting year. So Bridget and Deidra, feel free to take it away.
Hello, everyone. As she said, we are the 4th grade team from R.E. Davis College Preparatory Academy in Sumter, South Carolina. We basically collaborated beginning in the summer. Miss Williams is excellent with technology and coming up with new and fresh ideas. And so she kind of had the idea of how we would do things, and we just kind of ran with it. We would just sit and plan individually, but we did have shared documents where we could work together and see what we both were putting out there, and we just came up with the basically our lesson plan, which is also our daily tasks and lessons for our students. They see it, the parents see it, whoever comes into our class can view this, and it just helps with keeping us on track, helps keep us organized. And once we came up with our system, it's basically just full speed ahead.
Mhm. Ditto. Having everything laid out the way we're able to have it laid out for students makes it much easier when, if they miss a class, they're able to catch up or at least know what we did and ask questions about what we did. It's just, it has made this process a little more easier to take, to handle, having things laid out and specified in the manner in which we did.
So I'm going to show a quick clip that shows that layout, and then we'll open the floor to additional comments and questions for Bridget or Deidra. Here's a quick clip of what their structure that they're talking about looks like.
On here, you'll see we have our morning meeting. My name, her name, links that'll take them to put in their answers. So it's the response sheet. We have the date, ELA social studies, math and science. I teach math and science. She does ELA social studies, but we decided to put them all on one document so that students are not all over the place looking for what they need in math here, what they need in ELA there. Every student comes to this one document. They leave it up for the entire day. So if they're out, they also can come to this document as well as going back looking at our recorded lessons. As I said, everything is hyperlinked. So if we complete work here and I need for them to do a response on another sheet, I have a response sheet here that links, directions are there, what working on is there. In science, a light experiment, I love to put pictures, just examples of what we're covering. And then I always put the science journal.
So I'm going to pause.
My name is Bridget Belcher.
I'm going to stop us there and then stop sharing and then see if Bridget or Deidra have some additional comments or want to take questions.
I will add that the format it changed since I did the recording, but we are monitoring and adjusting. So we kind of went back. We tried something different and then we went back. So we're not scared to try out new things. And if it's not working, try something else.
We have a question in the chat box that said, this is fascinating and parents have access to. They actually do if they're added to our Google Classroom. But even if they're not, we have the files open, so anyone with the link will be able to view it. So yeah, super easy to find all the activities. Thank y'all. So yeah, pretty much everyone who has the link will be able to see and click on the links and go to the activities.
And there was a question, is this through Google Classroom? Yes, it's through Google Classroom.
Bridget, you talked a little bit about the formatting changing. Can you talk about what stayed the same and what's shifted and why you maybe have had to make some shifts, what you've learned in the process?
The first change we did, we took it from the students being able to see all the assignments, and we put it where they're seeing the stations that they work in daily. And we realized that there was no point in them seeing the stations, especially if we weren't moving the slides. It had on there what they needed to do, but the students were still asking where I go next. And so we just concluded that that wasn't going to work. And so we went back to showing what we're doing for the day. And then as we go into stations, we just pull up a slide that we click and goes to the next.
I was trying to type in the chat box. I think it's just easier for me to say it out loud. The question said about the changes first. Yeah, I know I flipped back and forth from doing whole group the whole time to stations So I know I've had to edit it myself to be able to show them what they're doing in stations if they missed a day, what they were actually doing in that station. And someone asked, are you working with any special needs students or ELL parents? At the time, we don't have any ELL parents. We do have a few SPED students, and believe it or not, I think they are actually taking off way more than students that may not be receiving SPED services with this document. I think it's because it has a visual and everything's kind of like color coordinated. I don't know, but they're doing really well with it. What do you think, Belcher?
I think they are. Some of them,
Yeah.
it's a little better than the regular.
Mm-hmm. Maybe because it's organized, maybe a little bit easier for them to understand and know what to do. And it's repetitive.
Here for parents who are helping students as well. So it's laid out for them and they understand what needs to be done. Someone asked if we've been virtual the entire year or in person. We started out virtual and then we went to hybrid. We are now virtual with plans to go back hybrid.
And I know an ongoing struggle for lots of folks has just been accessibility. How have y'all dealt with accessibility issues from the student or family side?
Is this in regards to them having internet access or them actually being able to operate the documents and the necessary applications we use? Which
Yes.
side?
Yes.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay, for those who may not be as technology savvy, we do how-to videos using Screencastify that walks them through step by step. And we like to use a lot of visuals, like Belcher said in the video. We love to add images because it just works out better than typing in everything. Having so much for them to read, it's just easier to have the images up there. And the internet issue, if the student may say my internet's acting up or I can't have, a lot of times slides, Google Slides may act up while they're in a Google Meet video for some reason. And they'll say, I can't have both open. So they will exit out the call and set a timer themselves on Google to know when to come back in the call while they work on the Google Slides. Anything else, Belcher? As far as accessibility? And they have recordings, like we have the recordings posted in the class. So if they have to exit out the call due to internet issues, they can go back and look at our live recordings.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Mhm.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry, there's my annoying timer going off, timekeeping going off. So one of the beautiful things about this structure is that if questions arise for Bridget and Deidra throughout the session, feel free to keep those happening in the chat box. We are going to transition to the next clip, but the conversation around their work need not end. So this is a very fluid, feel free to address your questions either directly to them in the chat or to the whole group in the chat, and we will keep that conversation going. With that, I'm going to introduce our second educator. Laurie comes to us from Iowa, our second time zone, and she is an instructional coach at the middle school level. And she's actually going to share a video clip of a teacher that she works closely with and talk a little bit about that teacher's instruction and how small tweaks can help dissolve the screen and help our learners, again, in this unusual school year and structure. So Laurie, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself and about the teacher's work that we're going to see, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Laurie Kammrad. I am an instructional coach at a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade building here in Council Bluffs, Iowa. I also serve as it's a district we call program champion, where I work to help kind of streamline our online learning, which obviously is brand new this year. So I'm a brand new position for that as well. The video that you're going to be seeing is going to be a teacher her name is Corey Wohlers. She is an 8th grade teacher. In our building, we do face-to-face. If families have opted to do online learning, that is an option, but we do have all of our students in face-to-face except for those that have opted out. What that has pretty much equaled out to is Corey has, along with all the other teachers in our building that teach core, so math, reading, science, and social studies, they have one section, one teacher per grade per subject do online learning, and they don't have other students in the classroom. It is not hybrid. It is 100% one-on-one with the computer. So they are able to provide their teaching for those students. When I was talking with the ladies for helping put this opportunity together, I don't feel like things I'm going to share about Corey are absolutely mind-blowing. I don't think people are going to be like, wow, where do I do all that? It's honestly such little tiny things that Corey does that really helps what we're going to call dissolving the screen. She suffers from the challenges of having to try to get cameras on. Our students are showing up probably like a lot of educators where their cameras aren't on. And so we've had to really focus on how do we build that connection with kids? How do we make it feel like they're in our classroom or we're in their house with them, even though we have a screen separating us? So. I can't hear the volume. Can you?
Sound? Yep.
No, there's no sound.
Dissolving the Screen, which is a concept described in the book Teaching in the Online Classroom, Surviving and Thriving in the New Normal, as well as encouraging engagement despite the distance. So in the first clip I wanted to share with you is an example of students getting on her Zoom with Corey, as well as her starting to not only transition them into the learning, but getting them set up for the day.
I'm going to stop the video there because I know it is hard to hear, and you have a chance to watch that in the homework that I sent prior. So again, going to stop sharing and turn this back to Laurie for questions and any other comments.
I did want to just briefly say the book that I'm referencing is actually a book that I actually discovered. You know, I'm always trying to find ways to support our online teachers as well as families and students. And it was a book, Teaching in the Online Classroom. They have a slide for that. And it's a book actually that we're going to be using as a district book study that I'm going to be providing for our district through our local education unit. And they actually are going to have opportunity to earn a credit for renew credit for that. And so that's where some of this terminology comes from. That's where I reference in the video. One of the things that we talked about with dissolving the screen, it's the way that what I see Corey doing, and that's a term that comes from this book itself. And you can also go online and look at the resources they provide through this organization called Teach Like a Champion. This book is a 2020 copyright date. It is all the teachers that this group of educators have studied, watched to go figure out what they're doing, what they did during the COVID crisis when we all were shut down, when no one was going to school. And so that was one of the things that really appealed to me to this book. But as I read the book and went into Corey's room, when I saw the way that she heightened and strengthened that exchange back and forth with kids, that was really what dissolving the screen was. When distance is the barrier with kids, it's how do we get them to turn on their cameras? How do we get them to engage in what we're teaching them? Whether you're doing it synchronously or asynchronously, Corey does, she does synchronously learning every single day. Her kids log in, she greets them when they're coming in, just like we would greet them as they walk through the door. Those little things. I know I've been on PD before where people like they're saying my name and I can't help but find myself smile when you come in, and it's no different than what we need to do for kids. And I see Corey doing. She utilizes a program called Desmos. It's an online opportunity curriculum that they're trying for illustrative math. And it has also played a tremendous role in helping engage students, as you see when you watch the video also. So I didn't know if anybody had any questions about any of the stuff or things that have come up in the video.
Laurie, there's some questions populating in the chat. Can you talk about, great question from Renee around that, the choice of students to turn on the screen or to not turn on the screen, and yeah, just sort of navigating that.
You know, the first time when we started, teachers really didn't push it. It was not a real, what I would call a straight up expectation. They always encouraged it. And as we reassessed, because we had families come back at the end of the trimester, families decided, you know what, I want to come back. This isn't working for my child. I think they got to see how COVID played out in our area, and they were able to join. And that was a conversation that kind of came up. And I think the big selling point for us was, you know, it was really hard, even with kids in our classroom with masks on. You know, when a child is behind a mask, you rely so much on facial expressions and things that kids are doing. And when they're in that screen, number one, it's really hard to see how they're getting it. We can still see, I mean, I can look at everyone right now that's live on this, and I can see if they're engaging with me. I see people nodding their heads. I see people jotting things down. And I think telling that to kids. And then, you know, I hear Corey a lot of time also talk about, I want you to be engaged in this. And I don't know about you, but when I know someone's not necessarily watching me or not noticing that, I tend probably not to be quite as focused. And so I think letting kids know that too, how important it is to have that one-on-one conversation, even though it's this little tiny screen, it's just so important. So we can't make kids. I think that's a huge thing that Corey and I've talked a lot about. We never had control of our kids 100% in the classroom. And we found out we definitely don't now, even with the greater distance. Thank you for noticing that question too.
Sure, and some questions about the resource. So we're going to put that title up. Again, this is the resource Laurie mentioned, and top takeaways from this particular book. And if there are other professional resources folks in the room are using, we would love for you to share those in the chat. So thanks, Sallie, for adding. And others, feel free to drop your favorite titles, websites, apps, anything that's, you know, helped you survive this year.
Yeah, I saw Sallie talked a little bit more about Desmos. I think people that teach math might be a little bit more familiar. Lots of online card sorts, those types of things. But, you know, another thing that Corey's talked a lot about with kids too is she really tries to get, you know how you have the thumb up, thumb down. We call those universal responses back when we're engaging with kids. We can have them do the digital one, but there's so much more value to seeing someone doing it. Or if you use pinch cards, or if you have a agree, disagree cards. So some of those resources that she has laid out, so that when families come pick up some of their items whenever they need to, we have those resources to also give. So Corey's tried those things as well.
Thank you so much. And again, just like we did with Bridget and Deidra, please feel free to keep popping questions to Laurie in the chat as we transition to our third presenter and practitioner. We're going to hand the mic over to Kip Hopman. Kip is my geographic neighbor just up the road here in Colorado, teaching Spanish at the secondary level. And Kip, would you talk to us a little bit about your video clip, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so my video clip is when we went to hybrid. It's basically what I did to kind of reimagine and reinvent the classroom. The video will do a good job showing that. Just a little bit of quick context before the video, before you guys check it out. But like I am in northern Colorado, so I'm in a middle school with about 550 kids, and it's an old building. So our rooms are not big, and which I'm sure many of you guys can relate to. But we pull kids all the way up to almost Wyoming and down. And so we've got pretty rural population of kiddos, lots of farming families, hunters, and they, the I guess logistics of the classroom was really, after learning the kids and who they were, how they needed to move and what they needed to do. Because I did high school for 15 years, and middle school, I thought I had it until I got to middle school. And so I definitely learned a lot about switching and the need for my classroom to meet their needs. So we did virtual. We started out the school year in virtual learning. October 16th went to hybrid. We are back in virtual right now. And Tuesday next week, we go back to hybrid again. So that's context where I am. Is that good, Jessica? That's there. Okay, cool. So I'll be quiet. Real quick, let's start with students come in classroom. Green means go, red means no go. So they have a clipboard to work in, and I was able to measure these chairs about 3.5 feet apart. As close as 3 feet is accepted in the district.
more or less due to logistics. If classrooms were tons of space, I think we'd be able to get them 6 feet apart, or at least in my room. But right now, this works where students only have someone to the left or right of them, nobody in front or nobody behind. Bell rings, new class comes in. This chair goes to the red. This chair that has been disinfected comes to the green. So then I can walk in the back and spray down these while moving through class. Coming in and out of the classroom, obviously we'll take classroom breaks. We've got
Oops. And back to Kip for your question and answers or whatever statements you have for the group.
And if it was if you guys missed that, just to follow like the chairs themselves. So last school year 2019 2020, I realized that like I'm just not a fan of desks, especially with middle school. Like kids need to move, and they sit all day. If you ever sit and follow a kid through a school, it's like eye-opening experience how much they just sit and get. And so my class is very hands-on, and we do. So I got rid of most of my tables and everything except for 2, which I took the legs off when COVID hit. They're on the floor in the middle of the classroom. So the chairs are back to back like that so they can rotate, because when new kids come in, we got to have clean seats. So I will switch the chairs, spray the back, dry, done, all that good stuff. The circular tables in the middle. My kids, who are my movers and shakers, sit there. There's, I went and tape measured as far apart as I could get, 3 feet. And those are my kiddos who may need to lay. They may need to move. They may need a marker. They may need like fidgety. So that's kind of what was going through my mind. So I'll stop and then pop some questions. And
Kip, I'm just curious. I know this footage is a few months old, and that this year especially, things are evolving, changing. How's the setup working? What changes, if any, have you made? What kinks, if any, did you run into? What would you do differently? Can you just talk a little bit about any changes?
yeah, so the setup, it went fairly well the weeks that I was there. Unfortunately, like my whole family, we all got coronavirus. So in the 5 weeks that we were there for hybrid, I was home 2 of them. So with my kiddos and my wife. So the 3 weeks that I was actually live with the kids in the classroom, I think for me up front, I need to train the kids on like rotating moving chairs to like stay in boxed areas. So just for that safe distancing. I do think that like the layout was good for them. They had a ton of space, and we did a lot of stop, drop to the floor, pop back in the chairs to get moving in class between mass breaks. Because at that point in time, I couldn't, I usually have the kids get up and walk around the room and things like that, and I couldn't per se. So I think figuring out to better utilize the tables in the middle. I had kids there individually doing things, but like to make it a community of some sort of like rotation into activities, that's kind of my goal for this next run. So see if there's any questions. How did you include the students who are online with this watch? So online learning, I have 2 monitors. So my second monitor, when I do, like right now I'm in virtual learning. So I do like live class every day for 50 minutes, so we're virtual, but I lead, I've basically went through a program that I found called Modern Classrooms Project. And it really, like, I was a big fan of workshop model. This really opened my eyes to the need for like a true blended model. And so like I've revamped my curriculum since July, and every single activity I have made it asynchronous or synchronous. So I've recorded an instructional video of myself for every single activity. They are in Google, and they're streamlined now, activity 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to the end of a specific unit or curriculum. And those are all organized, hyper organized week by week in Google Classroom. So my kids who are at home, I bring them into the Google Meet, because the asynchronous time has, I don't know if your all students have struggled at your schools. They've struggled at mine. Like about 50% of the kids coming and doing work. If a middle schooler gets up and it's like, hey, turn this in by 3. No, I mean, they're just, I'll do it later, and then it never gets done. Not to their fault. We train them when they're little to depend on us to guide them through this. So for me, I've like kind of coached them into like, okay, Google Meet's still live. Like Spanish is home is the same time it's Spanish at school. So they come to the Google Meet. I have it projected. I greet, we talk, I show the class. Yeah, we're moving and shaking. And then their instructional part, and that's the key. the instructional videos because they can go and do without me holding their hand while I guide my kids in the class. And if my kids in the class get ahead, they have a question on the computer, my kids in the class have the instructional video. So I love it because they can do it while we're live face to face and they're not waiting for me. And I failed miserably for like 16 years in the classroom, not really getting that. So. I'm looking, sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to type answers or answer. I'm looking, how has your classroom environment changed this year? If you're engaged in hybrid or short bursts? Jessica, was this, yeah.
Yes, so that's kind of a question for the group. So I'd love for other folks to just kind of share, what from furniture arrangements to sanitation schedules to, whatever's working for you. If you're doing short bursts of in-person or hybrid learning, we'd love to crowdsource. And please, again, feel free to keep, Kip will absolutely keep engaging with you in the chat. Thank you, Kip. As well as feel free to drop any of our presenters and participants as well. Feel free to drop relevant links, whether those be professional resources, websites, apps, again, anything that's really helped you. Feel free to drop those in the chat because we would love for you all to walk away. You can save the chat by hitting those 3 dots at the end, and you can walk away with an additional toolbox of resources. And with that, we're going to bring things home with Sallie Ortmann. She is a high school teacher from South Carolina, teaching anatomy and physiology as well as Bio 1 and serving in some different leadership roles within her district and state. So Sallie, if you could tell us a little bit more about your classroom and yes, your science classroom, and we will bring this conversation full circle after Sallie has a chance to share.
Hey everybody, my name is Sallie Ortmann and I am at Lexington High School in Lexington, South Carolina, where I am the department chair, and I have about 17 people in my department. We service about 2,300 students at my high school, and I teach anatomy and physiology and Bio 1. So Bio 1 is 9th and 10th grade, and anatomy and physiology is mainly juniors and seniors. And this year we have been hybrid the whole year since August. So I've got a cohort of kids and a B cohort of kids. And it has been a challenge. This is my 10th year of teaching. And I don't want any of you on here to think that just the veterans know how to handle and navigate this virtual world. It has been a challenge. It has been a challenge for those of us who've been doing it for a while and trying to reinvent the wheel every day. So we're so glad you've joined us today so that we can add some more tips and tricks to your hat. Approach to learning that material. I did not want to get rid of this in my COVID-19 classroom. So I found something called ThingLink. And this is what it looks like. I've created this ThingLink, and you can see the numbers here that are flashing. And this is a way for me to still have those stations, but keep my students safe at their desks. And so what they do is they go through and they will click each number, and this one gives them their learning targets. Then if we click number 2, this takes them to the research document that they're going to be using so that we don't have to have physical papers and pass those around. And as they click through the ThingLink, there might be videos embedded, and that would have been a video station in my non-COVID classroom. And they get the opportunity to watch that. Then they get the opportunity to go to some other places, go to another website. One of them might even take them to a small virtual lab for them to do some exploring. All right, so all right, so I did not want to get rid of the way I did a lot of things that were really beneficial in my classroom. I was just going to be completely selfish and not get rid of those things, but I needed to figure out how to keep my students and myself safe while still doing those things. So the ultimate goal was to figure out a way to continue to provide authentic learning experiences for my students while keeping them safe, finding a creative way to differentiate learning and take myself out of it more, because I know one thing that's been easy for teachers in this world to fall into is doing just a bunch of lecturing. And this also provides students an opportunity to collaborate with one another. I am dropping in the chat box a handout that I have created for you to just kind of look at some other things, look at some benefits. I've also provided you two links to two of my other creations in ThingLink for you to look at. The one in the video that you had the opportunity to watch was on stem cells. One of them is on science process skills that we do at the beginning of our units in biology. And then another one is a forensic anthropology activity that my anatomy and physiology students do. So in the real world, I would have them in stations, and I would have, you know, the name of the station either hanging from the ceiling or in a table tent. And so those names of those stations then might just turn into like the names of the individual things you can click on for the ThingLink. And then I just transformed whatever they would have done at that station into something on the ThingLink. So like the video said, you might click it and watch a video. Maybe I've created a tutorial video in Edu Creations for them to watch. Maybe I've created a quizzes for them to go in and quiz theirself. And so I'll link that there. I've also provided for you on that document some other things that you might want to look at to embed into your ThingLink. And then just kind of some of the logistics. I started out with the free version and then hit my 1,000 views and still needed to use it because I also use ThingLink to teach teachers across the state in our PACE program. And so I now currently have the premium teacher account and have a little bit more things that I can do with that account. The website is called ThingLink. So if y'all got any questions or anything you want to ask me how it works, I do know that before you kind of push this out to your kids, you're going to want to make sure that your district does not have ThingLink blocked. And then you want to make sure if you embed any videos into your ThingLink, that those videos are also not blocked. So it does take a little bit of work on the front end to make sure that, you know, it fits all of your district's items. All right, I'm trying to get it to pull in the chat, but of course my account stays logged in. So let me log out and then throw it in there.
Sallie, I've been familiar with ThingLink before. I was a fourth grade teacher for many years, and we utilized, like when we went on a field trip, we utilized a class picture, and then kids were able to click on their picture and then it took them to their conference stuff. So that's how we interacted with conferences. Now granted that was pre-COVID, but it was still, ThingLink is pretty awesome, and it's really pretty easy to put a lot into something. So I was really excited to see your video. It was neat.
Yes. And depending on the type of account that you have, you can do different things. So with the $35 paid teacher account, your students can have access to it. I think you have like 60 accounts, 60 or 61 accounts that can be used with the $35 one. And your students can then get on and create and do things. ThingLink also just updated recently, and there's a way for you to create a whole course within ThingLink and assign that course to your students. So as the world has gone more virtual and, you know, businesses like ThingLink have seen how useful these things can be, they have kind of upped their game as well. Somebody in the chat asked me how many views I have had. Where am I close to 1,000? I have the account that has the 12,000 views. And somehow, I don't know how, maybe because I hopped onto the ThingLink world before ThingLink was a thing. I have 2,200, or no, I have 22,000 views available to me. And right now I'm at a little over 4,000, and it reboots every year.
So awesome. So speaking of technology and innovation and creativity, so we saw some amazing examples from elementary through high school today of ways educators are rethinking education. And so as a final closing thought, I would love for any and all presenters actually to grab the mic and just talk about what's something that even when life returns to normal, whatever that is, right? Once in-person learning is happening, maybe on schedule, what is something that you will definitely keep, or something that you're going to let go as a result of doing school and learning differently this year? So if we could just do a whip around and kind of start with you, Sallie, and we'll work back through our presenters and just kind of share some final thoughts.
Okay, so even before our new COVID reality hit, I had already transformed my classroom to making it less about me and more about my kids. Kids don't want to be talked at all day. And so creating these learning experiences, what I call it, for the students to go through it, it differentiates the learning for them. They can work at it at their own pace. And I also embedded in that provide opportunities for students to collaborate virtually. So they might be working on the same Google Doc or creating a Google Slides presentation. So those are things that I'm going to continue to do even when we go back to normal, and I've tweaked and made a lot of those things better, because students are still going to need to learn how to operate in a virtual world if this happens again, or if schools and colleges and future businesses have learned that virtual works better, our kids are still going to need to learn how to operate in this virtual world as well.
Awesome. Kip?
Sallie nailed it. I'm kind of in the same boat through the modern classrooms, and I see I gotta drop that link in the chat box here in a second. Like the asynchronous synchronous blended model for every single activity, I definitely want it. It totally. When the kids came back to my classroom, I finally saw it live because I had all of that created, and my kids came back in 20 different places, and they didn't need me. They were able to go at their own pace at that point. So I still believe in, we come in and like building community through something. There's activities I like that I did, but if there's a kid who's having a tough day or something's going on, I have the ability now to let that kid choose to go down a different route, and he's not stuck with us as a whole class doing the same activity that he or she may not be ready for that day. So those are like kind of the biggies that I want to keep on. And I think the kids who use that and go down that path and we move forward will inevitably, I can push them into like a end all kind of connection to the community PBL experience. And since they may be way far ahead and ready for that. So that's kind of my goal. So that's what I'm going to hang on to.
Awesome. Laurie?
I think the biggest thing I've heard teachers talk a lot about is, I think a lot of the middle school teachers that our kids could be independent. And I think this is very quickly discovered that our education system really didn't provide for a lot of independence. Our students were quickly thrusted into something that we quickly couldn't help them get onto Google Classroom, and if they had issues with their Chromebook. And so I think a lot of what teachers have discovered is really how to incorporate some of those online opportunities. Because I think sick days, kids being gone for extended absences, I think that's different. We have snow days here in Iowa. I think those are going to look different. And so I think, again, it's just giving kids really being more prepared about the tools and the processes that we're asking kids to do so that they can truly be more independent and not so reliant on just even the day-to-day things.
Thank you so much. And finally, Bridget and Deidra, last words from you two.
I would say Belcher said it. She said it perfectly in the chat box. Having more student-led activities, it kind of ties into what the last speaker just said. It will kind of make them become more independent because it's their work they're in charge of, and it's not so much if we're doing most of the work for them. They're having to put in some effort as well. So more student-led activities has really helped us this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll also add that having everything accessible to students and parents.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So many powerful lessons for adults and for kids to learn through this year. We would be remiss if we didn't ask you to help us get better. We hope you enjoyed your time with our amazing practitioners today and that you're leaving with a treasure trove and toolbox of new resources. Please visit this survey link and give us some feedback. We would love to keep offering micro webinars monthly for free, and we'd love to improve, and would really love to know what resonated with you today, what you need from us moving forward, what you loved, and what you're taking away with you. So please complete that survey prior to logging off today, and we really, really, truly appreciate you being here with us live in the room for a robust conversation in the chat box as well as on the mic. And if you like what you heard today, we would love to have you back next month. Time and date to be determined. So keep your eyes on social media. We will push out that date and time very soon, but we are thinking that we're going to do something very similar in terms of sharing video clips and sharing knowledge from practitioners through the lens of different levels of leadership in a school. So we are hoping to get some innovative ways that everybody from principals to social workers to educators to parents in the classroom, in and out of the virtual classroom, are building culture in new and different ways through this school year. So stay tuned for more on that next month. And a huge virtual and in-person round of applause for our 5 presenters today. Thank you so much for not only vulnerably sharing your practice, your video clips, your time, but also just engaging in some reflective work with us in terms of what you're thinking now and what you're going to do even better. We so appreciate your reflection, your vulnerability, and the fact that you're putting your clips out there live for all of us to revisit on YouTube in the days to come. So thank you all so much.